Cashflow Diary podcast, episode 551.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because we have someone today who, in my opinion, is someone that we all should have heard a long time ago, because you've been wanting to build your business. You've been out there. You've gone from your 5, now you're at 6, and maybe you're at 6, now you're at 7. Maybe you're on your way to 8, and you're just like, dude, I need more people. I need to figure out who can help me because it feels like I am doing all the work myself. And, well, today's guest would say you need a great, not and a good number 2. And that's exactly what I get excited about, because I know there have been many times where, you know, you're out there, you're the CEO, maybe you found your CFO, but you're missing that other piece of you, that person who can help keep driving the corporate goals and making things happen. So some of you have probably figured out by now that I am talking, of course, of none other than Cameron Herold. Now, you may know him from many different things, from any of his books, The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, for example, Meetings Suck, my favorite title, Double Double, and maybe even you know him because he is a podcast host as well, the Second in Command podcast, where he interviews only COOs, which I think is unique and awesome. But today, he's going to be here to share his wisdom with you and I. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen. We're going to learn. Yes, we're going to love and be able to glean some information. But most importantly, I want you to be able, ready, and in the mindset to take immediate action. Because I can tell you one thing. You're going to want to implement, not just go, ooh, that was a great episode and I learned from him. So with that being said, here's what I want you to do. Make sure you have that electronic notepad. I know you might be washing, the dishes, walking the dog, doing all those things. I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm just saying get ready to bookmark lots of this conversation. So let's get ready to listen, love, and learn from Cameron Herold. Cameron, how you doing?
Hey, Jay. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
I am pretty excited because, you would not remember this, but you and I have shared the stage before. It was a while at capitalism.com, I believe.
Ryan. Yeah, with Ryan Moran.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's where I was introduced to you, and I was like, I like everything he's got to say. I can't wait till I figure out how to get him on our show. So I'm glad that you're here. And
Thank
this
you.
being the first time, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else the first time that they're here. You ready?
Okay. Yep.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs like yesterday's superheroes, like Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, etc., because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, as a, entrepreneur, occasionally I could envision myself flying around town, using our products and services, saving customers one sale at a time. However, also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. I mean, if you think about, say, Spider-Man, for example, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing and taking photos. Then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers, hey, I have a special superhuman ability. And now he's presented with a choice to use it for good or for evil. So my question to you is as follows. Before all of your books, before the COO Alliance, before, even 1-800-GOT-JUNK, before everything that everyone knows you for today, what we want to know is, who is Cameron Herold?
Wow. So that's a great question. If I go way back, my first earliest entrepreneurial memory, I was 7 years old. So
Okay.
I've really always been an entrepreneur. I'll give you my 7-year-old story. My mom came into my bedroom, and it was 1972. I was lying on the floor of my bedroom with one of those long extension phone cords. The door was closed, and I had the yellow pages open, and I was phoning dry cleaners. Now remember, I was 7 years old, and I was cold calling dry cleaners out of the yellow pages, and I was asking them how much they would pay me for coat hangers.
Hmm.
And the reason is, the day before I was at the dry cleaner, and my mom gave them a whole bunch of coat hangers, and they used to pay you 2 cents per coat hanger as a recycling fee, because then they would put those coat hangers back into their system again. Where nowadays we just throw them out, which is such a waste. Anyway, so I was calling, and I had one of them would only pay me 3 cents per coat hanger, and I was trying to get him to 4. And finally, I said, "How about 3.5 cents?" And he started laughing, and he goes, "What do you mean 3.5 cents?" I said, "Well, if I give you 2 coat hangers, you give me 7 cents." And he's like, "Kid, how old are you?" And I was like, "I'm 7." He goes, "I'll give you 3.5 cents." And my mom heard the whole conversation, and she said, "Well, where are you going to get the coat hangers?" And I kind of started to cry. And what she didn't realize was that whole day before, and the day that I was making the phone calls, I'd gone door to door in the neighborhood collecting door hangers from all of my neighbors. And I told my mom I was out playing with my friends. So I've been hardwired as an entrepreneur. I was groomed by my father and my grandparents as entrepreneurs. And my brother and sister and I today all own our own company. So it's all I've ever known. So I think, who am I before I started doing all this? I'm just me, man. I'm the same. I actually did a TED talk that's on the main TED.com site about raising kids as entrepreneurs. And I'm just the same kid I've always been.
Oh, okay. So that's
Sorry.
this is great, because what's going through my head right now is, well, my son, he's 8 at this moment, and I would love to catch him doing this. But what I'm thinking about is the fact, obviously, as a parent, you never want your kids to lie. And the one thing when it comes down to is like, I'm trying to figure out, how would I respond if catching my kid in that type of like, I'd be so conflicted, because you said you went to go play, but no, you were gathering inventory.
Yeah, I think I'd be turning to my kid going, "Okay, here's the deal, kid. Don't lie to me. That's awesome you were doing that. You don't have to lie." And I'd be like so excited for them and show them it was okay to open the door to that conversation, because from that point on, yeah, I was doing something entrepreneurial I think it was about 15 or 16 different entrepreneurial ventures that I talk about in my TED talk by the time I was about 18 years old.
Wow. Now, okay.
Yeah.
So there's
like little legit businesses.
I just I love everything that I just heard right there, and I just also want to catch some other people up. Yellow Pages. There was this book that had names and numbers in it, and then
Right.
extension cord phones used to have cords on them. I know
Hey,
you
rotary. Rotary phones too.
Exactly. I know those are things that are in museums today. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that they really did exist. Now, on this journey, because every entrepreneur, we all go through a journey. Most of us, because the thing that was unique that I can remember and that I know today, many entrepreneurs or many people are thinking, is there's this desire to be the person out front. There's this desire to be the one in charge, or seen in that way, for many people, not everyone, for many.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm curious to hear is, if you're raised, your grandfather, father, your entrepreneurial family, but yet you're like, no, be a good number 2. I need to hear how that thought process developed.
Well, the thought process, I guess, for me was one of my very first entrepreneurial ventures was with a group called College Pro Painters, and I was running a franchise of a big national house painting company. So even though I was an entrepreneur and had registered my own business and I had 12 employees, I was following their systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned how to kind of work in an entrepreneurial way inside of a franchise system. So I think I supercharged my growth and my skill set. And then I did 3 companies in a row where I was really the second in command, where entrepreneurs met me, loved the energy and enthusiasm and leadership that I had, and the goal orientation I had, and the tenacity that I had. But they also really liked that I had a lot of the skills to grow companies that they'd never learned yet. So I kind of had a real world MBA at a very young age. I had 12 full-time employees when I was 21. So when I left there and I did this chain of auto body shops and a private currency company, and then I took 1-800-GOT-JUNK from 14 employees to 3,100 employees. When in doing all of those things, those the CEOs saw that I could do what they wanted to do, but they didn't know how to do it. And that's where I saw the match, what I kind of call the 2 in a box, between the CEO and the COO.
So, and I guess my question becomes, how many times does someone come to you and just go, well, why not just be the CEO?
Well, the CEO's well, and I am today, right? I run my own company.
Yeah, you understand the irony, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So, though, I guess what happened was I got very inspired by 3 different entrepreneurs' visions that I got locked into their vision and excited to help them make it happen. So, if I walk you through each of them, a family friend had 7 auto body shops, collision repair chain shops, and he saw that I had built a franchise organization, multi-unit branding, marketing, PR, and asked me if I would come on as a partner in the company. So he gave me equity in the business, and I was able to help him expand it. I left 4.5 years later as we were taking the company public, and it became the largest collision repair chain in North America. It's called Gerber Auto Collision in the US. It's called Boyd Auto Body in Canada. And because I had done that, I was in an entrepreneurial group called EO, which was called the Entrepreneurs Organization. And because I was a co-founder, I qualified as the entrepreneur as well. Even though I was technically the second in command, I was still a co-founder of that business. Mm-hmm. So I was in a forum group, kind of a mastermind with other entrepreneurs. And one of the guys in my group had a company called the Rubbish Boys. And it was a small 5-truck operation hauling junk. And he watched me then do a private currency company second, where we built up a company similar to what Bitcoin does, but we sold the company for about 60 million Canadian back in January of 2000. And Brian had watched me build a very rapid growing technology company, and he saw that as my second business, really my third. And then he asked me if I would come on and join him to build what he was changing the name over to 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And I was really inspired by his vision of what he wanted to build. And I knew that he didn't have the skills to do it. He was a very young entrepreneur, very green, had never franchised, had all the vision in the world, but didn't have the skill set to make it happen. And I didn't have the vision for anything big at that point, but I had the skills because I'd done it already a couple of times in the franchising world with College Pro and then with Boyd Auto Body. I could do what he wanted to do. And he was my best friend. He was my best man at my wedding about 3 months before that. So I said, you know what, let's do this and I'll help you build it. And we did. And it was amazing. It was super fun. And then 6.5 years later, when we were just over 100 million, I left the company, and he then had the skills to continue to grow it. And at that point, I probably didn't have the skills to take it from the 100 million to the billion mark.
Got it. Now you said something that I want to make sure that no one is left behind, because I realized you and I
got locked into their vision, right?
Yeah. Well, their
vision.
That was one of the things that I noticed. But there's another thing that I just realized. You and I, we just got, I'm excited to have this conversation. We just started jumping in, but I'm going to take a stab and say that there's someone listening who doesn't yet understand what is the distinction between CEO, which I often will call Chief Everything Officer, versus COO, especially at the beginning, because at the CEO, you feel you're just doing everything because you kind of have to. But how would you describe the difference between the two so that someone could go, oh, yeah, that's what I'm after?
Well, the CEO, I think you're right. In the early days is the Chief Everything Officer, and then they transition to the Chief Energizing Officer. And when they can transition to the Chief Energizing Officer and give people the inspiration, the why, the vivid vision of where they're going, the excitement about the future, but not necessarily be the how. In fact, Simon Sinek years ago wrote a quote, even way before anybody knew Simon. He wrote a quote on my first book, Double Double, that Brian was the kind of why guy and I was the how. and that every CEO needs that how person. So that's really kind of what it is.
So is there something like like in a practical sense, I guess, what would you say on a day-to-day basis would, how do their calendars differ, and most importantly, at what point do you believe that CEO needs to find in that COO to begin that transition?
Well, the CEO has to find someone they completely trust. So the trust has to be massively implicit on day one, or keep interviewing and keep doing the reference checks until you trust them enough that you would give them your passwords and the keys to your house and bank account day one. Right? If you don't have that trust level built up, you're not done the interview process to know if that person can truly be your 2IC. When you have that pure trust in place, make sure that they sign off on your vision. So the second in command really understands the vision that you have for your company, and that you as the CEO really understand the plan that they want to put in place to execute. So the best analogy, and I talk about this a lot on our Second in Command podcast, is if you're building a house or doing a renovation, let's say of your kitchen, the homeowner is the CEO of that project. The homeowner has the vision for what the finished home is going to look like, or the finished kitchen renovation is going to look like, but the homeowner doesn't know how to do electrical. They don't know how to do plumbing. They don't know how to hang cabinets. They don't know how to build the foundation of a house, but they can explain the vision in such a way that a contractor gets excited about the vision and says, I can do that. And they create the plan or the blueprints to make the homeowner's vision come true. The homeowner signs off on the blueprints. The blueprints really are signing off on the vision. When those are locked and loaded, you hand the plan or the blueprints to the workers, and the workers can build the house. So that's really where you trust the contractor, you trust their skills, and you can see by their plan that they know what your vision is and they can make it come true. That's the key.
You have no idea just how appropriate that analogy is for me, having grown up in the real estate space, and when we're doing design, build, and construction, I'm always thinking architect, construction, and guiding that whole thing through. Yet the challenge I think a number of entrepreneurs would have, though, with even that description, is the fact that it's like, well, I can't afford a CEO. I don't know how to pay. When do I get them in? Because typically you want to engage someone in something like that, or at least if I'm taking down a multifamily building or repositioning the asset, that's something I'm going to do at the beginning. I mean, the blueprints are there. Hello there, entrepreneur. This is Jay Massey, and what I want to say to you is that the number one mistake that I have ever made in business, number one, has been waiting too long to do the books, waiting too long to get the bookkeepers, the accountants, the CPAs, the CFOs involved, and I don't want you to make that same mistake. That mistake cost me over 6 figures, and now for a significant discount, you have the ability to get your books together using FreshBooks. So what I want you to do is I want you to go over to gofreshbooks.com/cashflow diary. Again, that's gofreshbooks.com/cashflow diary. FreshBooks is the easy to use software designed to help you, the small business owner, the freelancer, get organized and save time on invoicing, getting paid faster, keeping those books in order so that it becomes a bonus for you to do your taxes as opposed to a burden. Go over to gofreshbooks.com/cashflow diary and get started today. And now let's get back to the rest of the story.
Yeah, so let's not get wrapped up in titles. And I think a lot of people tend to get wrapped up in a title saying, I can't afford a chief operating officer.
Perfect.
Well, it's also could be called a VP operations.
Yep.
Or a general manager or a director of operations, right? It's like a CFO, the chief financial officer, could also be a VP of finance or a director of finance or a controller. So you need to have someone helping, or a bookkeeper, right? You need to have someone doing some of the things you suck at. And I think the school system really messed up a lot of kids, me included, by telling us that if we were really bad at something, we had to get a tutor to become kind of average at what we were bad at. And what I think they should have said was, you know what, you suck at French. You don't ever have to learn French. Why don't you find somebody who's really good at French, and they'll write your French exams and you'll write the leadership exams. And I think in the business world, You can find fractional people to be your
Mhm.
operations people. You could get a coach, like an EOS traction coach. I coach CEOs all over the world, but you don't necessarily have to find a full-time employee.
Exactly. And that's what I you went down the exact path that I was hoping you would, because that's honestly how I've had to do it myself. And at the end of the day, the skill sets are, well, I try to remind people, don't try to be good at something over there. I'm not going to even attempt it anymore. And
Well,
go ahead.
it's even the core reason why I started what I call the COO Alliance.
Oh,
Is There's a million. Yeah, I started the only network of its kind in the world for the second in command, and the reason I did that is there's almost I don't know, 40 different amazing groups for entrepreneurs. Right, we've got EO, which is the
oh,
Entrepreneurs
yeah.
Organization. You've got YPO, which is the Young Presidents Organization. We have Vistage. We've got the Genius Network, Baby Bathwater, Maverick, Go Abundance, the Brotherhood. All these amazing groups for entrepreneurs, and all these great conferences for entrepreneurs. And the COOs go to those events, but they don't fit in. They know they don't fit. They want to get deeper into the issues. So I think the entrepreneur needs to know what needs to happen. The COO needs to know how to actually do it. So the entrepreneur needs to go, oh, there's systems for interviewing. The COO needs to learn all of the systems for interviewing, right? The CEO needs to go, oh, there's ways to run effective meetings. The COO needs to be taught how to run effective meetings, because entrepreneurs by nature are a little bit bipolar, very ADD, often on the spectrum for Tourette's. They're almost incapable of becoming great operational people. And what we're doing is we're trying to teach them how to run a company instead of saying, this is how a company runs. Now let's teach your team how to do it for you. Like, why would you teach a homeowner how to do electrical and plumbing? That's ridiculous. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm yes.
For real.
It's laughable, and yet many of us have gone down that road. And I'm also laughing because what you should I just used the exact same words to one of my best friends, because I was like, look, dude, you are operations all day. I can just see it in him, and I'm just like, don't. You're asking me. You do it. I don't know how. I know why. I know why we need to do it. I know how it. I know I have an idea that it should be done, but whatever way you want it done, then that's the way it needs to be done, and I'm good with that. And he's learned. It has taken him a while to understand that. Yeah, even though I'm footing the bill, I'm okay with whatever you say. And I always tell our contractors, like, look, if he's happy, I'm happy, because he understands what we're trying to achieve and can make that happen. So, which begs this is just begs the question now, because is this a place where an entrepreneur could go to help find his next COO?
No, it's kind of, yeah, no, it's the protected class.
Oh, I
We actually will
see.
never recruit from the group because the entrepreneur is paying for their COO to be in it. And no one
Oh, got it, got
and
it, got it,
we don't allow any of the entrepreneurs to come to our events.
got
It's
it, got it.
exclusively for second in client in commands.
Got it. Got so. Have you had any CEOs try to sneak in?
Well, we have one who is a co-founder of a company, so they technically act as the second in command to their CEO. But they even realize that they kind of don't quite fit, because um, everybody really wants to get into the details. They really want to talk about operations and execution and culture and meeting rhythms and strategy and get into the details more. And entrepreneurs love staying at that 30,000-foot level, which they're
Yeah,
supposed to.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, as you were talking about the things that they love, I kind of fell asleep a little bit, because I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want.
Right?
Those are not the things. I mean, I know they're important, and yes, they matter, but it's like, can someone else do that part, please? So I get that. Now, when it comes down to, you discovering this I guess this untapped, unserved, underserved market, you as a COO, but also that entrepreneur, who's selling coat hangers, you made the decision to cross over that line. Does it feel like you've betrayed your tribe in some way by becoming the CEO, or in
No, because
form of this?
I Well, no, because I've been running my company for 12 years. So my core purpose, Simon Sinek in his book Start With Why talked about really understanding your core purpose. And he and I were having dinner at my house years ago before he did his TED Talk. We were talking about what my core purpose is, and I said I've always loved helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. And for me, if you think about my books, help entrepreneurs make their visions come true. My COO Alliance, by training their COOs, it helps the entrepreneur make their dream come true. My Second in Command podcast is information. So everything I do is consistent with helping those entrepreneurs, and I just have to build a company around it.
So now I'm going to ask the opposite question. Someone listening is probably the COO, but currently trying to function as the CEO and playing out of position. How would they be able to identify that either in themselves, and more importantly, what do they do?
Great question. So a really interesting example of this, and if you listen, I think it was like episode 2 of the Second in Command podcast, was Harley Finkelstein, who is the COO for Shopify. And I've known Harley for years. They had about 40 employees when I first met them, and they're now a multi-billion-dollar company. Harley was the COO to the company, but his partner and CEO was a very kind of inward-facing CEO. And they just recognized that Harley's role was to be that outward-facing, business development face of the company, even though his partner was very inward-facing. So the two I see, that two in a box kind of model, is very similar to like a husband and wife building a family, right? In the traditional 1950s, you had the pink jobs and the blue jobs, right? Mm-hmm. Guys did the stuff around the house, and women did all the cleaning and the laundry and the cooking. Well, fuck, I don't like doing all this shit, or I screw up around the house. Like, I love cooking.
Man.
So
Me too.
For me, I would rather cook and let my wife or girlfriend can do the electrical and the plumbing work, because I don't like that stuff. So that's really the way the CEO and COO work is. You take whatever the CEO is great at, and that becomes their role, whatever they're really good at and they love to do, and everything that they're not good at and they don't love doing, hire a COO who is amazing at that stuff. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you could be the CEO of a company and go, I'm really bad at vision. Well, then great, you be the operator and have someone who's responsible for vision to make sure that's clear on your org chart.
Inherently, that just sounds so counterintuitive to me, because I'm used, because that's what that's my wheelhouse right there. I'm like, I'm not giving that away, but I hear what you're saying.
Because you're strong in that, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But for an entrepreneur, we start a company for one of only 3 reasons, or the mesh of 3 reasons. One is to give us time, right? To give us free time. Number 2 is to spin off lots of cash for us, and number 3 is to create something, a legacy, or create something we're proud of. So what does it matter if you control vision if you're not good at it, and you can have somebody who can help that happen? As long as that creates your end goal of giving you time, money, and creating something, who cares? I've got a lot of CEOs who are terrible at finance, so their COO runs finance.
Oh God, yeah.
Right.
Now I can structure the deal and think through those things, but man, the actual mechanics of the stuff. Anybody else.
So why do it, right? And at the end of the day, but you'd get advice from your friend who's a lawyer. Oh, don't ever delegate finance. Well, why? I suck at finance.
Well, and okay, so let real talk, Cameron, that you hit a sore spot is because I have that exact issue right there when it comes to the finance. I've had to learn and relearn multiple times because there was, to some degree, an over delegation, almost abdication on my part, to where we had with 2 different instances. One, it was they embezzled $800,000, the other was $400,000. And so I'm still trying to figure out where that happy medium is for me, so that, and right now I feel like I've got too much. Yeah, I've got too much control over that right now. And I'm just like, got to figure it out.
So you need to do what's called trust but verify, or inspect what you expect, are 2 really good kind of mantras to keep in mind when you delegate finance. So the trust but verify is that you might have an interim CFO. I've got a few that I have clients, I refer out to these people all the time. In fact, like let's say you're running a $5 million company and you can't afford a real CFO and you've got a controller and you're not good at finance, you get this interim CFO, and maybe for $1,000 a month, they take a look at your numbers, they take a look at your books, they inspect stuff for you, and they come back to you with the questions of things to dig into. So you can always get
that's all kinds of worth it.
Validation, right? It's huge, right? It's kind of like I've had the reason that I've coached so many CEOs around the world is they can't afford me full time as a COO, but they can't afford not to have me on their bench.
Right.
For 3 hours a month, they've now got me as a part of their team.
And that's exactly the type of stuff that's where we find ourselves, especially in that weird space between 2 and 10 million. It feels weird because it's like, I think I'm big enough, but if I do and don't, I mean, it can depend on how to make those things happen. So how much, I guess, credence or emphasis would you give to the industry experience? For example, a number of the people who listen here, obviously we're in the real estate world. We're always trying to build cash flow of some kind. So while we are asset agnostic, at the same time, the goals are very, very similar in terms of, generating some sort of cash flow or free cash flow on a quarterly, annual basis. Often leveraging real estate, not always. For example, we have a number of people who are currently focusing on short-term rentals. And one of the things that particular model affords itself is, you can get to, the 2, the 3, the 4 million category really, really quickly sometimes. And it's usually faster than what maybe your skill set has had a chance to catch up on when it comes to team building and understanding other people's roles. I'm saying this because a lot of the people in the that I would traditionally think or try to tap for operations, they may not have any sort of experience in terms of the particular industry. How much weight do we?
I give a lot of credence. It depends on the industry. So, as an example, in junk removal, when we were hauling junk from people's homes or businesses to the dump, we weren't really in the business of junk removal. We were in the franchising space. Okay. So I had a lot of depth in franchising. Brian had never franchised his company. I'd already been a franchisee and a franchisor in 2 countries with 3 companies. I had some depth. So I was able to walk in, and based on my franchising experience and having done it with 2 really great companies and been on both sides, I was able to do stuff because I knew how to do it. In fact, I came back in on my first day. I was supposed to go out and ride in the trucks for a couple of days. I came in at lunch on my first day, and Brian's like, dude, you're supposed to be out in the trucks. I'm like, dude, I get it. We pick up junk, we put it in the truck, we throw it out. I got it. That's not what we do. But in other businesses, let's say you're building houses, you would really want somebody who had been in the house building because there's so many complexities for that industry. Right. So I think it just definitely varies. But if you're in the technology space of building an app like WhatsApp, a telephone app, it doesn't matter if you go from that to a FreshBooks and you're building an accounting software. You're really a technology company.
Understood.
Right? You're not an accounting company versus. So I think it just depends on the space itself. The second part is you really want somebody who's good at the stuff you're not.
Well, not just good though. What if? I mean, because I still marvel, but how important is it for them to actually enjoy it? Because sometimes we can be good at something that we don't actually find enjoyable.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, so for example, I can think of many people, and the easiest example I can think of is someone who, while growing up, they were told to play the piano, and they're good at it, but they don't enjoy it.
So Dan Sullivan, who started a program called Strategic Coach, I've done 7 years of his program over the years, talks about something called unique ability. And his idea is that you basically categorize all the stuff that you do in one of 4 ways. Either I for incompetent, C for competent, E for excellent, and U for unique ability. So incompetent is you suck at it. Right now I am incompetent at guitar, but I'm going to learn this damn thing. Competent means, I'm getting to be okay at it, right? I'm okay at riding a bike. Excellent means you're really, really good at it, but you don't necessarily love doing it. So I'm really good at sales, but I don't love sales. I don't love doing the cold calling. I don't really love having done it. But I'm really, really good at sales. Unique ability is something that you're so good at that you would do it for free, except you've got to pay for your food, right? I got to pay for my kids' lives. But, or every time I do it, people are like, wow, he's really good at it. Or when you do it, you just get energized from it. For me, that would be like doing a speaking event.
Yes.
I've done paid speaking events in 27 countries on 6 continents. I had the publisher of Forbes magazine say I'm the best business speaker he's seen in 19 years. I think that's probably a unique ability for me. So yeah, if you have stuff on your plate that you're really, really good at, but you don't love doing, that's the stuff you want to push over to a second in command and have somebody who looks at that and goes, oh my God, I could do that stuff in my sleep. I love that stuff. And for Harley and I can't grab his co-founder's name at Shopify, but for Harley and his co-founder at Shopify, his CEO didn't like the outward-facing business development, PR, and sales. It drained him. He liked the inward-facing engineering and technology and IT sides of the business. And Harley was like, I don't love that stuff. I love everything to do with the energy of people.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And that's, yes. I mean, there's just so many things that make sense, and it's often, challenged to find the individuals. I want to go back to one thing you said, because when you were mentioning finding this person who you have massive trust in, like, the only thing that comes to my head is like, how, like, that's the word that comes, like,
how do you get that trust?
How do you find how do you intentionally find someone who likely currently a stranger that is,
and they're likely working somewhere right now.
Yeah, right. All of those things. And I'm just like, what? Yeah. What do you, I'm like, how does that happen?
Yeah. So I talk about that in a few of my books. I talk about this concept of what I call the vivid vision.
Okay.
And the vivid vision is you describing your company in such vivid detail, like a 3 or 4 page written document describing your company in the future, that when someone reads it, they get excited about it. They can see what you want to build, and they see themselves as being a part of that. So step 1 is crafting that vivid vision. And I talk about that in the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. I talk about it in my first book, Double Double. And then I get into detail with it in a book called Vivid Vision. That's step 1, is crafting that and then pushing it out publicly. Step 2 is creating a job description and a scorecard for the role that is written in such a way that it really polarizes, that a whole bunch of people are like, no effing way would I ever want that job. And other people are like, oh my gosh, that is totally me. Like, it's really written in such a way, and get a copywriter to polish that job posting and treat it like a marketing piece. When you push those 2 things out, you'll start to attract the right person.
Got it.
And then you might even need an executive search firm, like, depending on the size of your company. I have got 4 different executive search firms that I refer companies to all the time, and they're some of the best in the world. One of them only does $400,000 plus roles. Like, they do the very senior, seasoned, really solid second in commands. Other ones that I have are more mid-market roles of like the $100,000 to $300,000 roles.
Got it. Now, so this then brings up, like, I guess the question becomes, when it comes down to, here's what I could say that I'm pretty certain that a number of us have done. We have taken maybe our executive assistant or someone of that nature who's in that role, and to some degree, maybe put him or her in a de facto state of, like, here's all the stuff that I don't want to do, but they're not necessarily charged with that. But that, I think that kind of happens by default to some degree.
Yeah, we promote them to their ceiling of complexity, right? We promote them to their level of incompetence, which is sad, because it's a lot more responsibility than they can handle, and it's stuff that they're not good at, and we just end up kind of beating them up about it.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. This is, but this is, it's one of those necessary pieces. Like I learned a while ago, if you can get a CEO and CFO on the same page, your company can go far. But you still need that, operations person, and for lack of a better word, that triangle. If I'm thinking basketball, that triangle offense is pretty strong when you can get it going. What would you say has been, in your travels, talking to entrepreneurs, all the stuff you've done, what would you say has been the telltale sign, like when someone is coming to you or approaching you or talking to you or has a question where you can go, oh, you need a second in command? Like what are the external, evidence on a company standpoint that makes you think that all the time?
When you've seen a fly trying to get out a window of your house and you see the fly banging their head on the window and they're just trying harder and harder and harder. And you kind of watch, like we've all done it. Like, we're sick motherfuckers. We sit there and we look at the fly and we're like, you stupid fucker. Like there's a door 12 feet to the right. Turn and go out the door. You're free. But you're going to bang your head against that window for the rest of the day. And sure enough, they end up dead sitting on the window ledge. That's the telltale sign. You watch these entrepreneurs, and I do it all the time, trying harder. I'm like, dude, there's such an easier way. So, and for me, I like giving them the cheat sheets. I like giving them the shortcuts and showing them where those little doors are that they can just turn and go out. And when you give them that, all of a sudden they're home free.
Got it. I can neither confirm
and
nor
they're
deny.
so obvious to me.
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny whether I've done that recently or not. So I hear exactly what you're talking about. But the solutions are always obvious to the wise sage who's always been down there. When we're in the middle of it, we don't see it. It's our baby. We're trying to.
That's why
make it grow.
That's why you need to get yourself into a mastermind group. I participate in 4 different masterminds. Like I pay to be in Strategic Coach. I pay to be in the Genius Network. I pay to go to Baby Bathwater. I pay to go to Abundance 360. 5. And I pay to go to the main TED conference every year, 5 days of it. So when you surround yourself with all of these other people and you're no longer the smartest person in the room, right? When you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So when you can surround yourself with these other people and they can see your shortcuts for you, and you can go in and be vulnerable enough to go, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And they go, well, I can help you. You go, great, show me. And then you can kind of synthesize all of their ideas and it shortcuts it for you.
I love it a lot.
Most entrepreneurs won't. They'll be like, nope, I'm just going to work harder. Well, then you're just like that fly banging your head. And when you're ready to learn, get into a mastermind, get the right coach in place, start learning from everybody else's shortcuts.
Yeah.
Until then, just keep banging your head on the window.
Bang away to your own beat, even. So, I know that there's a number of people who have listened this far. They're enjoying. They want this to continue forever. I know I do. However, that's obviously not possible. But they want to find out more. They want to figure out, what their next step might be. What's going to be the best way for them to catch up with you, figure out more about what you've got going on and what you're doing?
I guess I'd direct them in 2 ways. One is to subscribe to the Second in Command podcast, and it's available everywhere you listen to a podcast today. And again, we interview the COO of all these amazing companies to learn how they're doing it. So that's one great area they'll pull some great tips from. The second is I've written 5 books, but I would start with one of my core books I think is the best for this audience. I would start with The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs first. Then I would probably go to Double Double second. And then if you want to get a book for every one of your employees, most business books are written so that, the leader might read it. I wrote a book called Meetings Suck because everyone's complaining about meetings, but they don't know how to run them, nor do they know how to attend them and participate in them. Meetings Suck is a book that every employee at every company needs to read. And if you're not willing to invest $15 in your employee, you probably shouldn't have them as an employee in the first place because they spend 1 hour a day in meetings. So that's what I would have every employee read. And all of my books are available on Amazon and Audible and iTunes, etc.
Got it. Totally understood. Excellent. Now, as we wind down, I've got a final question for you. I'm curious to hear your answer for sure. Especially given how it all started with coat hangers all those years ago. There's a number of individuals who have listened this far, and maybe we got them. We finally got them to what I call that precipice of decision. They've been thinking about it, and they said, you know what? That's it. I'm doing it. I'm going to make it happen. Whether that's I'm getting started in business or I'm going from 6 to 7, I'm going from 7 to 8. Today's the day. I'm finally hiring that person. Whatever it is, we got them to that line. Now, like I know, that oftentimes as humans, when we get to that precipice of decision, there's a companion that we have, and that companion often comes in a form of a voice, and it's a voice that reminds us why it didn't work last time, how it might not work this time. And don't you understand what you were trying to achieve is so grand? I mean, man, that's the vision is bigger than you. There's no way you're going to find the right person. It reminds us of all of those things, and for some people, they're related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. They're going to do exactly what you say, and they're going to do it in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
Ooh. It's kind of like when you were a kid. Remember when we were like 7 years old and we were out running in the bush or a park, and there's a creek and you want to jump across the creek? You can't jump part way because you got a soaker, right?
Yep.
You gotta go for it. You gotta jump the whole way. And I think to be an entrepreneur, you gotta jump. You've gotta jump. And then it comes down to really three things: focus, faith, and effort. Really, really, truly stay focused. And if you disperse light, it lights up a room. But if you highly focus light, it cuts like a laser. So truly focusing your time, your energy, your marketing, everything has to be hyper focused. Next is your faith. You have to protect your confidence in yourself, your market, your team, your business, your ideas, your learning. So really working every day to keep your level of your faith in yourself and everything up. And then third is effort, like truly putting in the effort, right? Working for yourself is not easier than having a job. It is harder. It is longer. It's more frustrating. You will have sleepless nights, but you have to put in the work. And if you do those three things, you'll be successful.
I love it. Every time I hear you, I get excited, re-energized, and I start to believe again. I can find that second in command. They're out there somewhere. And I definitely appreciate everything that you're doing for the business community, entrepreneurs as a whole, and for recognizing and doing something about the fact that, COOs have been overlooked for far too long, and you've chosen to do something about it. I definitely want to be the first to say I just appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge, wisdom, and insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary, sir.
Hey, Jay, thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? Well, clearly, it means you have 3 books on your list now. 1, Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. You have Double. And then, yes, meetings suck because you've already said those words, so you might as well read the book. And at the end of the day, you know it is time to move forward. You have been given very clear, very important direction. And most importantly, it is something that you can do. You've had the vision, and now it's time to bring it to life. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.